Thank you. And welcome everyone to the CCRI Knowledge Hub webinar. This webinar is titled Public Engagement for Circular Behavioral Change from Awareness to Adoption. It's created and organized in the framework of the Circular Cities and Regions Initiative Knowledge Hub in collaboration with the CARE project. These webinars aim to support cities and regions in their transition towards circularity, especially here on the topics of circular behavior change and public engagement. My name is Lizeth Lopez. I'm a project manager at ALDA, the European Association of Local Democracy. I manage projects in the Environment and Climate Hub related to circularity, and today I will be guiding you through our different sessions. And for this, I'm going to present you also our agenda for today. We're going to have a really short introduction of the CCRI Knowledge Hub, so you have a bit idea of in which framework this webinar is developed. Then we will have our first session, which aims to introduce the GAME framework and how this behavior change can be done towards circularity. Then we will have a second session regarding how to engage communities through participation and co-creation. The third session, it's mainly be good practices and different case studies, such as the Fig Fighters project, the Directing Waste, and the PS Lifestyle. Then we will have a short break, and we'll come back to have a group exercise in which we will design our own behavioral engagement strategies. For this, you're going to have moderators in your session, guiding questions, and it could be really helpful to know also your experience in this type of engagement, just to strengthen this peer-to-peer knowledge as well. At the end, we're going to have some key takeaways and a set of last news from the CCRI Knowledge Hub. So with this, we can start, I think, our first introduction. And for this, we have Noemi Garcia, which is a senior research and development consultant and European manager at Kay Veloce. Kay Veloce is the coordinator of the CCRI Knowledge Hub. With a background in materials engineering and social anthropology, she has contributed to research and innovation projects on solar energy, energy efficiency, and climate resilience across Europe and Latin America. She currently works on Horizon Europe projects, including the COSECUR and the CCRI Knowledge Hub, supporting collaborative innovation and sustainable urban development. So thank you for being here, Noemi. I'll give you the floor.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Lizeth, for the introduction. So yeah, as Lizeth was saying, in Kay Veloce, we are the coordinators of the program of the CCRI Knowledge Hub, and we are, well, my aim is to give you a very brief overview of the program. All right, so I'm going to share my screen to show my presentation. Okay, that's it. Okay, so about Circular Cities and Regions Initiative, so CCRI, it's a support scheme of the European Commission, who has been launched by DG Research and Innovation. So it's part of the European Circular Economy Action Plan 2020, and it's aligned with the main European frameworks regarding circular economy and sustainability. So it's funded by Research and Innovation Funding Program, Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe, with more than 250 million euros. And its aim is to support circular systemic solutions in cities and regions in Europe, as well as new circular businesses and governance models. So it's a multi-stakeholder collaboration. There are different entities involved. So from one side, just for you to understand a little bit how it works, we have the CCRI office. So they are coordinating all the organizations and supporting the projects. Then we have the CCRI projects, such as our CCRI Knowledge Hub, demonstrating circular solutions, testing new businesses and governance models. Then we have, of course, the European Commission, who provides institutional support and financial support. And finally, we also have associated partners which support activities of dissemination. There are external entities who support also the projects with collaborations, networking, dissemination opportunities. So up to date, more than 100 cities and regions have participated in our initiative to progress on circular economy. And the CCRI also teams up with 300 organizations supporting these circular economy principles. So what does the CCRI offer for European cities and regions? It's divided in three pillars. So from one side, we have the knowledge part, so to speak, and this consists in the Knowledge Hub, thematic guides, funding guides, learning modules, catalog of technologies, case studies, etc., that you can find in CCRI website. Then we have a part of exchange. So this is who tries to promote peer learning and networking. So here we have different working groups, community of practice, mentoring programs, and twinning programs. And finally, we have another pillar consisting in more tailored support. So this is advisory and technical assistance, capacity building, technical and financial support, and capacity building activities, such as the one we are having now with these webinars. So, well, this was very brief. I hope it's clear. I'm really sorry I cannot stay in the webinar. I have to turn to another meeting. But any question you can do it through Lizette. So thank you very much and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you so much, Noemi, for this introduction. It's very in the way that the webinars are made is to support all these activities that Noemi mentioned, and especially for specific cases and specific mentees that we have within the CCRI Knowledge Hub, but we know that this knowledge is transferable as well, so it's important also to have these open webinars. So with this, I would like to give our first jump to our first speaker, our first session. The first session is titled Behavior Change Towards Circularity, the CARE Framework, and I would like to welcome Dr. Nina Mesiranta. Dr. Nina Mesiranta is a university lecturer in marketing at Tampere University, Finland, and a member of the Wastebusters Research Group. Her research focuses on sustainable and circular consumption, exploring how behavioral change can support the transition to a circular economy. She's actively involved in the CARE project, which promotes more sustainable consumption and practices and citizen engagement. So with this, I'll give the floor to you, Nina.
Thank you. Thank you, Lizette. So I will start by sharing my screen. I hope you can see it now.
Yes, we can see it.
Yes. So warmly welcome on my behalf as well to the webinar, and also on behalf of the CARE project, who has been organizing this, as you know. So it's my pleasure to give an introduction into the CARE project and how we approach behavior change or practice change towards circularity. Okay, let's see how I can then change my slide. Just a second. Yes. So before going into our approach, let's start with the basics of CARE. So CARE is a project where our big aim is to work with at least 100 households in 5 countries and transform them into circular model households, either in the prevention of food waste or circular clothing consumption. The project has started in January 24 and will end at the end of the next year. And the project is coordinated by Tampere University in Finland, and the project coordinator is Professor Elina Närvänen. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today, so I'll be presenting on her behalf. And as you can see from the countries listed, CARE is a very Northern European project, with the other project partners coming from 6 countries. And the partners comprise of universities or research institutes, municipalities, civil society organizations, as well as non-profit organizations. And as I mentioned, the project started 2.5 years ago, and currently we are very busy running pilots with the participating households. The project is one of the CCRI projects, so it's very closely connected to the EU's Circular Cities and Regions initiative. The participating households that are now in the pilots are located in 3 CCRI pilot areas, which is Asker in Norway, Gothenburg in Sweden, and Tampere region in Finland, as well as 2 CCRI fellow areas, which is Berlin in Germany and Lääneharju in Estonia. And at the moment, we have a bit over 130 households in total from these 5 areas who participate in our pilot activities. The pilots have started about a year ago, and they will run until the end of this year or early next year. So each participating household stays, or at least we hope they stay, or at least 100 households stay for the duration of the pilot, which is at least 12 months. And our pilots contain 2 types of activities for the households. We have interventions that target changes in consumption practices, and we have customized circular advisory services. Both of these activities are cost-free for the participants. I will delve more into detail of the interventions later, but let's say about the customized advisory services here. So our customized advisory services aim to support the households in their participation in the pilot and in the changes they make in their daily lives. And as said, this is customized part of the project, so this is based on the needs of each household, but also on the data that the households have given in our data collection when they started in the pilots. And these advisory service meetings will be organized both as an individual meetings with households and also in a group setting. And so in this presentation, my focus will be on the interventions as they best illustrate our approach that draws from practice theory. And as I said earlier, CARE focuses on food and clothing. So we have also 2 pilots, one on food waste reduction and one on circular clothing consumption. And in our project, we also conduct an impact assessment where we assess the impact of the pilots from the environmental point of view and also from the well-being point of view. But before we go into the detail of the CARE interventions, I will shortly introduce you to the basics of our approach, which is practice theory. Many previous research and other initiatives in circular economy that have focused on consumers, they have taken more or less an individualistic approach to changing individual consumers' behavior. In those approaches, consumers are seen as someone who makes a choice whether to adopt or not a solution or a business model, or it has been thought that by increasing awareness of these issues, a change will also occur in behavior. However, in contrast to this, or to complement this, the practice theoretical approach focuses more on the holistic social and material aspects of everyday life. And practice theory is not actually a single theory, but rather a group of theories developed in the social sciences. These theories see the world through the lens of everyday practices, as the name suggests. And even a couple of years ago, researchers have suggested that this approach would be suitable to study circular economy transformation regarding consumption, but there is still knowledge that is needed regarding how these new circular practices emerge and how they sustain. And with the CARE project and with our results, we hope to provide this further knowledge on the changes in everyday lives. What then is a practice that we are focusing on? Practice has been defined as a routinized type of behavior, and it starts of consisting of several elements which are interconnected to another. And we will take a look at these elements shortly in the next slide. But anyhow, in this thinking, consumers are seen more as carriers of a practice. So the practices can be carried out by individual consumers or collectively, for example, by a couple or a family. But nevertheless, all practices are considered to be social. For example, through social norms and meanings that are associated to the practice. In CARE, this view is also highlighted by the fact that it is always a household as a unit rather than an individual consumer who is committed to participating in the pilots. So regarding the elements, in CARE, we follow a very established view of what constitutes a practice. This has been developed by Elizabeth Schaub and her colleagues. And according to this view, practices consist of meanings, materials, and competencies. Materials are those that are needed to perform a specific practice. These can be everyday objects, spaces like retail spaces, infrastructure like waste management, infrastructure, tools, technology, or even the human body. Competencies, on the other hand, are the skills, knowledge, and capabilities that are needed to carry a certain practice. Meanings refer to social and symbolic meanings of participating in practices, what we consider as desirable, what kind of feelings are related to the actions. So meanings can therefore refer to, for example, symbols, ideas, norms, social norms, values, ethics, or aspirations. And in this thinking, these three relevant elements need to coexist for the practices to endure and sustain. And you might ask then, what are the barriers? Why won't we adopt some circular practices? The reason might be that some element or elements are lacking, or these elements are somehow misaligned. For example, households might not have the infrastructure they would need, or they lack some central skills. For example, if we think about repairing clothes, someone might have all the skills and all the knowledge and all the tools to repair their clothes at home. But there's a negative social norm or shame related to wearing repaired clothes. So, as a result, the practice might not be adopted. In CARE, our focus actually has not been specifically on barriers as such, but of course, after analyzing our results towards the end of the project, we might be wiser regarding also the barriers. However, our approach takes the view that by focusing on these three elements, adoption of circular consumption practices should be easier in households. So let's take a short example of this. So buying second-hand clothes, and by the way, this example is not directly from CARE, but from previous research from care researchers. So here are some elements that might be involved with buying secondhand clothes. For example, the practice involves knowledge of where to find relevant secondhand clothes, for example, for certain aged children or for men, or how to evaluate the quality of pre-used clothes, as sometimes the label is missing from secondhand clothes, as we know. The material elements can involve, for example, the apps or platforms that offer secondhand clothes, or how the brick and mortar secondhand stores are organized. Do I find the items that I'm looking for in this particular store? And meanings can include norms related to hygiene that might need to change, or whether secondhand clothes are considered as a sustainable choice. It is also important to note that in this view, practices are seen as interlinked with another. So, for example, the practices that are related to reducing food waste are interlinked with also other food-related practices, such as the practices of how to shop for food or how to store food. So, coming back to care and our interventions. So each household who participates in care attends either the food or the clothing pilot. And both of these pilots consist of 3 interventions, each targeting different practices related to the pilot's theme. And we developed these interventions together during the first year of the project in multiple workshops between the partners. We also organized citizen workshops in all 5 areas to gain insights into our pilot development. And you can see some pictures here from Germany and Norway from these workshops. Furthermore, we have reviewed previous studies to develop these interventions. Each of these interventions lasts between 4 to 12 weeks, with some weeks between each intervention and the next one. During this break, we will, for example, gather feedback from the participants regarding the intervention. And in total, then, the pilots last at least 12 months for each household. Each intervention can be adapted to local conditions. As I just mentioned, infrastructure is part of this practice theoretical thinking, so it's quite natural that it can be adapted to and should be adapted to local conditions. But we have, however, agreed on some joint elements as well. We usually start each intervention with a workshop. At the workshop, we also provide the households with relevant materials to help them in their new practices. Then during the rest of the intervention period, we challenge the households to develop their daily practices, that we give information to them and advice, and give the participants an opportunity to share their experiences with other participants. All of these are mostly conducted online through our own Care online community platform, which is exclusively used by these households who are participating in the project. So in the food waste pilot, the interventions focus on cooking, food planning, and food storing, and in this particular order. And currently, most of the countries are about to start the 3rd intervention, which is the food storing intervention. On this slide, you can see some pictures from a cooking workshop in Finland, where the participants were giving some recipes for items they had reported earlier during the project as the most likely ones going to waste in their households. So the recipes were adapted to their needs. And quite similar cooking workshops have been moderated in most countries by chefs or experts in home economics. The 3rd intervention, food planning, concentrates on developing the practices of shopping and how they can be improved to reduce food waste. For example, having flexibility instead of perfect planning can help with preventing food waste. Finally, food storing focuses on how to best preserve food in order to avoid food waste. And for example, how to organize your fridge, in what kind of containers you should put your food into, and so forth and so forth. The other pilot, which is the clothing pilot, includes interventions on clothes care and washing, repair and redesign, and wardrobe planning. In the first one, the focus is, of course, how to take care of garments and also to think about the environmental impacts of washing through, for example, reduction of washing through alternative cleaning methods. And as you can see from the pictures from Berlin on the right-hand side, repair and redesign intervention focuses on how to repair and modify clothes so that their lifetime can be extended. The households and participants were not only given knowledge on how to do this, but they were also doing it in practice in the workshop, like I said in the earlier one on cooking. So they actually did it themselves in practice. And again, led with some experts. The final intervention in the clothing pilot focuses on wardrobe planning. Sometimes we also call this a fashion detox. During these interventions, the households are challenged to refrain from shopping new clothes and instead utilize the clothes they already own. However, if there's a need that arises that they need to have some clothes bought, we of course encourage them to then have it, buy them as second hand. Okay, to summarize, how does practice theory show in our interventions? So we focus on the materials element by giving the households materials in every intervention. For example, a guide how to cook from leftovers or equipment for repairing clothes. The social dimension focuses on meanings and competencies. The workshops and other events not only develop their skills and competencies, but they also include peer learning and support. And this also includes interaction on our online community platform. Competencies are also developed by the challenges we pose to the households, for example, to reduce their number of washing cycles, or to organize their cupboards, fridges, or to plan their meals based on the items they already have in their cupboards or fridges. And if you are interested in the practice theoretical view to interventions, I recommend that you take a look at the very, very fresh paper, which was published last week. It's the first scientific publication from the CARE project. And in this article, we review previous studies on interventions in the areas of food waste and clothing consumption. And in this review, our special focus is on how practice theoretical interventions are implemented. And the paper is available as open access, so anyone can access it. And it has been published in a journal called Circular Economy and Sustainability. And then to end with a final note of how CARE connects to the CCRI community. So as partners, we have two CCRI areas, which is Asker community and Lääneharju region. The other three areas, which are cities of Gothenburg, city of Berlin, and the Council of Tampere region, they are represented through our external advisory board. And the CCRI coordination and support office is also represented in this board. And this particular webinar you are now attending is one form of cooperation with the CCRI. In the future, we have also planned other communication and dissemination possibilities, for example, a circular day final event, and also a capacity building program for CCRI regions that we call Circular Academy. So thank you. And in case you want to keep track of what is happening in CARE, I would suggest you to follow our social media channels or sign up for our newsletter on our website. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nina. We have actually one question in the chat. If you would like to address it, it says, could you please tell a bit more about data collection? How did you organize across different countries? What were the main challenges? Do you have any tips for a project that plans to collect data across big and small cities in Europe, before and after interventions? And did you actually collaborate with the CCRI cities, or are universities solely implement the research?
Yes, this is a quite wide question, a lot of questions. I would say that would require another 25 minutes, but yes, so we have in the 5 countries, we have different levels of data collection. So in 3 countries, in Finland, Sweden, and Norway, where we have also the university partners, we have not only some quantitative surveys and quantitative data collection, but also qualitative interviews. And then in all 5 countries, we have some data collection that the households need to fill out in the beginning and in the end of the project, that they need to fill out. For example, in the food-based project, pilot, we have food-based diaries that they fill to measure their food-based amounts. They do it in the beginning and in the end. And in the clothing pilot, we have a so-called wardrobe study where they go through their wardrobes. And also we have quite extensive surveys to know of their situation before and after. But yes, and do I have any tips for a project that plans to collect data across big and small cities? Well, I would say think about the requirements of the data collection. So from our perspective, quite many households have said that this is quite an extensive data collection that we have had, and I have to admit that it's quite a lot of work for the households to do the data collection for themselves, for the projects, and that can actually be an obstacle for some participants. But then on the other hand, it's quite usual in EU projects that impacts are needed to be measured. So the EU wants us to measure impacts, and that's of course understandable. So you have to come up with some kind of a solution that it's easy to use platforms where this data collection happens. And did you actually collaborate with the CCRI cities? Well, not other cities besides the cities that we have had in our project. So yes, of course, the ones that we have in our project, but not with other cities regarding the data collection. And universities, yes, we are in charge of the data collection, and the implementation of the data collection then is at the local partners. Yes. And I can see also in the chat that there are some initiatives with NGOs in North Spain. That's nice to hear as well. Thanks for that information.
Yes, thank you very much, Nina, for this presentation and for the introduction of how the CARE project is dealing with these interventions. I think it's very, very interesting. And also thank you for explaining us this social practice theory. So to complement this presentation, maybe it's a time for us to jump to our next session. It's our session 2. Engaging communities through participation and co-creation. And for this, I would like to invite Kirsi Berka, who is the Participatory Budgeting Development Manager at the City of Helsinki. She specializes in participatory democracy, citizen engagement, and digital participation, with extensive experience in co-creation and democratic innovation. With a background in education and sustainable development, she works to strengthen collective intelligence and empower communities through inclusive and collaborative approaches to decision making. So, Kirsi, I'll give the floor to you.
Thank you very much. It is nice to meet you all this morning. I will share my presentation and continue straight away. So the title of my presentation is Designing Participation for Behavioral Change in the Circular Economy. And the idea is to bring up the essence of participation in maintaining and designing the continuing behavior change. Here we have some statistics. For example, 78% of the Europeans say that environmental issues affect their daily life. And 66% say they sort waste or support recycling. But in real life, only 44% of waste is actually recycled. So there is a substantial gap between knowing and maybe trying and what is really actually happening. So knowing what to do is easy, and doing it every day is the real challenge. And as we heard before from Nina's presentation, so people act when the choices feel meaningful, when they understand why they should, for example, recycle or reuse or reduce the waste, when the sustainable behavior is easy and visible, and when they are seeing that others are acting too, or they can act together in a meaningful way, and they feel that they are capable of making a difference. So this is, of course, the reason we should design for participation and enable action, share power, work together, and support behavior change in this way. Here I have a group of citizens, and they are discussing about their daily routines or the things that are happening in their daily lives at the moment. And one of them is saying that I just moved here and found clear information about recycling, repair, and sharing services. It made it easier for me to maintain food habits and recycle correctly. The other one is saying that I made a successful proposal in participatory budgeting. Now we have a neighborhood sharing service where we can borrow tools instead of buying them. We started a local campaign against fast fashion and organized events to encourage people to repair, reuse, and rethink their consumption. And the fourth one says that I shared my views in a city survey and workshop. And now new mobility solutions and shared services are being developed based on our input. And the fifth one is saying that the city awarded us a grant so that we can develop a mobile application that helps citizens share services and goods. So here we have a group of people who are having an information so that they can act based on their motivation. But they are also they have been also able to share the power, for example, taking a part in participatory budgeting, where the city has given the citizens a right to make proposals and vote of a certain amount of money, how the city is going to use it. And then they have had several initiatives that they're doing on a local level. And also the city has been giving them some grants and some support so that they can be active and even co-create something together with the city. So this is, of course, a very nice view, and we would like to have a lot of groups discussing in this way in our cities and communities. So public participation, as we noticed in this previous example, is a very powerful tool when we are designing ways to change the behavior in a circular economy. And one of the main positive aspects is that it improves policies and services by bringing in local knowledge and lived experience. I think what is really interesting also in Nina's presentation, that there you can really gather a lot of information. What are the drivers that are driving mostly the change in the behavior, and maybe what are the barriers? I mean, this kind of local knowledge and lived experience that is extremely valuable for us. And this is what we get through participation. It also harnesses the collective intelligence. We have a lot of knowledge, not only the local and lived experience, but also the real knowledge, because people are working with the sustainability issues. And when we are harnessing that collective intelligence, it leads us to more effective, innovative, and equitable policies, services, and practices. And one important thing is that public participation at its best creates a sense of ownership and responsibility among citizens, and also strengthens the transparency of the different activities, accountability, and public trust. And all of this is, of course, also adding to the democratic practices and social cohesion in the cities and communities as well. So here I'm going to shortly describe you different levels of citizen participation. What does it mean? For example, maybe the easiest part that we are often doing is the consultation. We are having surveys, different polls, feedbacks. We are asking feedback. We are having hearings about different activities, of if we are planning different actions, services around the circular economy, then we can of course consult citizens. What do they think about it? What kind of experiences do they have? One step further on for this is a co-creation, where we can co-create new solutions and have workshops and have a dialogue and have a co-design together. When we are really trying to share power, for example, in the city or in the community, we are inviting citizens for voting on different options, or they are able to make proposals, and then they are able to vote what they would prefer. And I already mentioned the participatory budgeting. And then, of course, we have a very powerful tool, citizen assemblies, which has become a very actively used method in Europe latest years. And here the citizens are randomly selected, and then they are deliberating based on the information. For example, they can think about the best ways how to improve the circular economy practices in the households in a certain area, for example, or in the certain city. So we are inviting citizens really to make decision making, to the decision making. And then, of course, we had already a good examples about this kind of citizen-led initiatives and experiments. And then co-implementation, of course, so that the city is inviting citizens and organizations and companies to implement and co-create together new services and practices. But what would be essential for us when we are thinking about how to design participation for behavioral change? So, of course, one of the basic thing is that we have to identify who needs to be involved. And when we are doing so, we have to go also beyond the usual suspects, so that we are also seeing that who are the ones who are not often very active and who are the ones that we might have difficulties to reach out for. And then we have to understand what needs to change and when and where. And then, of course, we have to understand both behavioral and participation barriers, which are often actually the same things. For example, the knowledge and understanding about what are the possibilities of circular economy, circular economical things in the area. And also the knowledge about the ways how to participate and what to do. Of course, motivation, norms, convenience. Citizens are not very willing to participate if it's not quite easy. And also the same thing with the behavior. I mean, we are recycling And of course, combining different kinds of tools, communication, co-creation, deliberation, and experimentation as well. And design already from the beginning for behavior, and not only for information or only for campaigns, but see it as an ecosystem that needs to be designed already from the beginning for behavior change by using different participation methods. So how do we promote this active citizenship? So provide foundations. We have just here in Helsinki, where I'm working at, we have been the whole spring, we have been co-creating our new participation model with the citizens and with the city experts. And one of the things which seems to be quite obvious, but it is obviously a thing that is so essential, is that we are able to provide spaces for the citizens, free spaces for citizens to get together, to organize events, and places really to share ideas and organizing, for example, co-creation events. Of course, we should have also resources and grants. This is what the city of Helsinki is doing quite a lot. We are giving grants for different organizations, for example. Of course, we have to have also tools. They can be digital tools, but also like knowledge and capacity tools and support and networks. So these are really the foundations for this kind of active citizenship that we have to provide and promote and actively seek if we have this ecosystem already in place. And of course, support in practice. So when we have citizen-led projects, we could have some community manager, for example, who is helping them to find the spaces or resources, or understand to whom they should contact at the city, or how they could contact each other in the city area, so that we can have this kind of citizen-led projects and community initiatives. And working together, of course, it's very important. We should bring people together. We should build networks that are more combined. We have like citizens, we have NGOs, we have cities specialists, we have companies, so that we are really having a rich network of people who are working with circular economy, and then we can co-create and co-implement together for more sustainable future and more sustainable practices. And then, of course, always the problem is that how to move from campaigns and long short-term initiatives for this kind of long-term engagement. So we should give feedback for the citizens, for example, if we have had some surveys, if we have had some experiments, if we have had some projects. So we should give them a feedback, what was successful and how should we continue, and then have this kind of build this kind of long-term engagement and also provide capacity building. So my main message in my presentation is that behavior change emerges from the system, not from a single intervention. So as you see that we have, the good thing is that we have a lot of different tools, we have different methods, we have a lot of different theories what to do. But the bad news is that it's not enough to use one of them. We should have really a rich ecosystem of all these kind of different participation practices in order to really succeed in this kind of attempt to maintain long-term sustainable behavior. So of course, here I've been also trying to build the gap between the individual and the social level as well. And I think the participation is really nicely combining these one, that of course the individual level, you have to know what to do and how to do it, and you have to have the motivation and see the meaning in circular choices and understand the purpose why we are doing these activities, and also being really active, moving from knowing to acting, and reuse and repair and recycle in daily basis. But the participation is the link between the individual and social level, where we are also, of course, adding the impact. When we are working together, it's getting more visible, and in that way also it attracts more people to join you, because it is getting more socially acceptable, or even sometimes maybe the only norm you can really follow to behave in this kind of and choose circular choices. And then we can move on to active citizenship, to see volunteering, activism, community care, to have citizen-led initiatives, repair cafes, sharing networks, campaigns, advocacy, and mobilizing others. This is really the essence and the core of the whole participation as well. And then we have to see that we have the enabling environment, that the environment that enables all these the individuals on the individual level. It is easy for them to participate and act in a circular way. We are giving possibilities for participation, and we are actively supporting active citizenship, making policies, having a right infrastructure, having a regulation, different resources, grants, tools, spaces. We have feedback loops on place. We have capacity building and long-term engagement, also as a follow-up of all these different practices. So I thank you for listening to this, and I hope you find this fruitful also for the afternoon's exercise when you are planning your own ways how to design this behavioral change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kersey. I think these two last sessions have been very complementary, and we're seeing the value of active citizenship and how different participation can actually support the circular behavior change. So with this, maybe I think we can jump into our next session, in which we're going to see a little bit more of this in practice through different approaches. So for this, I would like to welcome and also introduce to you three special guests. We have first Maria Iletterati. She's a project manager at ALDA, working on European funded projects focused on sustainability, democracy, and environmental protection. She currently manages Horizon project initiatives on the circular economy and has extensive experience facilitating participatory processes and stakeholder engagement. Our second guest is Michele Giavini. He's a senior expert in sustainable waste management at ARS Ambiente and advisor to the Italian Composting and Biogas Association. With over 20 years of experience, he supports municipalities in improving biowaste collection system and is the creator of the KITE, Know As You Throw approach. This encourages sustainable behavior through data-driven feedback. And our third guest is the Associate Professor Dr. Menevis Uzbay Pirilli. She's an economist specializing in sustainable development, ecological economics, and the green transition. She contributes to several EU-funded projects in Turkey and focuses on sustainability transitions, ecological literacy, sustainable food systems, and community-based innovation. So welcome to all of you three for being here. Now I first maybe give the floor to Maria, and then we can go to Michele and Menevis. Maria, the floor is yours. Perfect. Thank you very much, Lisette, for the introduction, and nice to see you, everybody joining the meeting today. So let me share my screen now. Okay, can you confirm that you can see the screen, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So, as anticipated by Lisette, my short intervention today will mainly focus on the contribution of the FIG Fighter project for citizen engagement. So let me briefly present you the FIG Fighter project so you can have an idea of the topic, and then I'll go deep into the citizen engagement. So the FIG Fighter project is an Horizon-funded project, and the key topic of the project is on phosphogypsum. I don't know if any of you know what phosphogypsum is. So just very briefly, this is a byproduct waste that is, for instance, produced by fertilizer industry. So this waste is usually accumulated close to the city in really large deposits. And this waste is not, why we are choosing to focus in an entire research project on this, because this waste has several negative impact from different perspectives. So from an environmental, a social, but also also an economic negative impact. So the objective of the project is to research how this waste can be reused in other industry for different production. So of course, in line with circular economy principle. However, as I mentioned before, the idea is to research this topic not only from a technical perspective, so looking how we can recycle this waste, but also how the presence of this PG stack, when I'm speaking about phosphogypsum, I will refer to as PG. So how the presence of this large PG stack have impact on the communities. So this is where our focus on citizen engagement is on. So before moving to the citizen engagement perspective, just very briefly on the 6 case studies of the project. So in the frame of this FIG Fighter project, we have identified 6 case studies, meaning 6 cities where there is the presence of this PG stack. As you can see from the slide, they are not just in Europe, but also, for instance, in the Balkans. So the problem of the presence of this PG waste, it's very wide. It's not just limited to European countries. So in each one of these case studies, what we did and what we are currently doing, of course, is to both study the PG waste from a technical perspective. So there are research university, industry, and so on that are studying the waste, the PG, the material, in order to see how it can be recycled. And what we are doing from our side is to organize citizen engagement workshop. So which are the objectives of this workshop? So the idea of this workshop is to gather together a group of 10 to 15 participants that are living close to the area where there is the PG stack. And the idea is the workshop are around 4-hour workshop, and of course they are all conducted in their local language. And we have various objectives. that we are aiming at achieving during the workshop. So at one side, we want to strengthen the awareness of the citizen on the topic. On the other side, what we also want to do is also to identify, to map, to understand what is the impact of the presence of this PG stack in their daily life from several perspectives. So from an environmental, from a social, from an economic perspective. So just to give you a better understanding on the topic, for instance, these PG stack are very often accumulated close to the cities. So for instance, they are not very well regulated. They are left, they are very often also abandoned. So of course, it has also some negative impacts on the environment. It pollutes the river and so on. So that's why we engage citizens trying to understand what's their feeling, how they are living with this problem. So also in the workshop, what we are doing is also to dedicate. I will explain later on each exercise in a dedicated slide, but just to give you the context, what we do also through this workshop is also to engage the citizen, trying to understand what's their perspectives in terms of future development of the area. So to co-create the management and the future scenario. So as I mentioned before, we have a 4-hour workshop, and I will briefly present you the different activities of the workshop because I think they are all well connected with the key exercise that could be really relevant for the topic of this of today meeting. So as I mentioned before, a key goal of the workshop is also to raise awareness, but also to provide citizens with the concrete information about the topic to empower the citizens. So a specific activity of this citizen workshop is to organize an informative session that is delivered by an expert on the topic, where we really give the technical information, but also, of course, comprehensive about the topic. So, for instance, what is the PG? Which are the industry responsible for its production, if it's dangerous, because you should also be aware that this waste has also a level of radioactivities. So citizens are always very worried about the whole situation. So the idea is to really provide some technical information so they are more aware, but also, of course, in the same time, more capable of acting to solve, to co-create and co-manage the situation that is impacting their daily life. So another activity, we have this informative session and 2 hands-on activity. As I mentioned before, an objective is also to map and to identify what is the impact of the presence of this PG waste in the daily life of the community. So what we do as hands-on activities to ask people to map the impacts of the presence of this stack in their daily life. So looking at the past experience, but also the present experience. So also another layer of this activity is to asking people, what do you think are the priority to be addressed to solve this situation? Like, for instance, the priority is the negative economic impact of the presence of this PG waste. Like, let me give you an example. So usually, sometimes we notice that the presence of this PG waste has a negative impact, as I mentioned before, to the environment. So it pollutes the soil. So of course, people that are working on the agriculture are really struggling
to work on this, because people are very concerned and are not buying their product. So as you see, this is a very complex topic that is really having an impact on the citizen from various perspectives. So in this slide, you can see the template that we are using for this exercise. So mapping past, present, but also negative and positive feeling experience. And also one example of a poster that was produced from one workshop. So the second activity is an hands-on activity similar to the previous one. In this case, we ask people to co-create their future, the future scenario. So we ask the group to write a newspaper article describing how they imagine the area where there is the PG stack or their city, let's say, in 10 to 15 years. So what's the idea? The idea is to understand so what has changed, but also who are the key actors involved, which are the changes, but also which are, as was said before, which are the meaning, the tool, the instrument to do this changing. So what's the objective of all of these activities? Of course, the idea is to engage people, to feel them part, and also most importantly to feel they are here. Because sometimes what they really like during the workshop is that they really say that they like the fact that someone is interested about them, that they want to hear their voice. So in this slide, and that's my last slide, you can see the key conclusion from the workshop. So all of these conclusions have been then also reported in a comprehensive policy brief that was shared with the local administrator where there is the presence of the PG waste. So as you can see from the slide, we have three main gaps, or if we want to better fit to today's topic, three main barriers. So the first one is related to the lack of information sharing and monitoring. So always the citizen reports that there is not enough information sharing in terms of impact of this PG waste. How is it managed? Which are the impact on the environment? And also there is not enough monitoring. So the local administrator are not enough checking the industry, checking how the PG stack is managed. And of course, we have the need to enhance the information sharing. Then citizens, as I mentioned before, all mentioned that they are really happy of being here, being part of this project process, because they report that they are not enough involved, consulted. So there are not a moment where the local administrator are creating a moment for discussing and for engaging them. And then last one, that's the most tricky one. So the point is that, as I mentioned before, the project is researching on the valorization of this waste. So there are very limited and fragmented solutions for the PG waste management and remediation. So there is, of course, a crucial need to improve the research for alternative, for way to reuse this material and to remove the stack from the cities. So that's the message from my side. And of course, if you want to have any question, I'm here. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much, Maria. Maybe we can jump into our second case study, our second project for Michele. I'll give you the floor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Lizette. Yes, I will also talk about another EU-funded project quite quickly because I think we are running a little bit late. I was involved in a live project, Rethink Waste, which actually ended a couple of years ago. And it was about improving behaviors in waste sorting by using quite innovative tools with of course the nudging theory behind. But I will just stress on this fact, from the definition of the nudging theory, nudging must be done without altering economic incentives. I'm stressing on this because, in waste management, there is, this pay-as-you-throw scheme, which is quite implemented in a lot of municipalities around Europe. But paid, according to this definition, is not nudging. It's just telling people, if you deliver more residual waste, you will pay more. If you recycle more, you may be having some savings. But this is not actually what's probably altering behaviors in some situations. So that's why we introduced this know-as-you-throw concept in this live project. And it was just about informing citizens about their individual behavior. Because, pay-as-you-throw is just an invoice that you send to citizens, and you get to citizens once per year with an invoice about which many don't realize. They don't know even what they are paying for waste tax and so on. Know-as-you-throw is about giving individual, customized and frequent feedbacks. So citizens feel monitored and maybe improve their habits accordingly. Because we have a lot of data, we have a lot of containers with RFID, bags with RFID, buckets, large containers with RFID cards and so on. In Italy, I estimate that we have 25 million inhabitants that are actually monitored, but this data is not used for any purpose. So that's why we decided to investigate about this and try and use this data for improving habits. The typically informative message is like in pay-as-you-throw. Last year, you generated X liters of residual waste. You have to pay this amount. Okay, that's simply pay-as-you-throw. Know-as-you-throw is you generated these liters last year, but you are doing this sorting and we have checked your quality. We are comparing your amount with other payers, with other households and so on, getting to the nudging point. Your neighbor is better than you. That's really social norm information. That's why we decided to use an app. We decided to use WhatsApp instead of apps and smartphones, things that actually are quite common. But we think that these kind of instruments are used only by already good recyclers, while we have to get to the bad recyclers, to these devils. And it's not actually easy to deliver a message to someone that doesn't want to hear you. That's common communication theory, So it's not setting up working groups or, with probably already sensitized people. We want to have an easy instrument to get to them. So that's why even this is true. We also use an economic incentives in the sense that we want their phone number to get to them. So we set up a lottery just to attract people to give us their first message, so they subscribe to the platform. And just for subscribing, they are eligible to participate to a lottery, including vouchers and discounts in local shops. As soon as we have their phone number, we started delivering messages like this one. Sorry, I will go quick, but it's like informative messages or quick information like this is a new information for you today. Do you want to know about paper recycling? Yes, okay, just write info. So we need their interaction. Without interaction, they don't get the message. They say, they press the word, they say video, and they get a video about the recycling of paper and cardboard. And surprisingly enough, 90% of participants wrote the word video in 24 hours. So that was innovative and quite interesting. We got to the point of even sending information about the quality of what's inside your container, like a message like this. Do you want to know what's the typical quality of your container of organic waste, for instance? Write the word, this is in Catalan, red. Okay, you write red and you get a picture of your container, which is really quite never tried before. And we think that's really the key to improve their recycling habits, because if you throw a bag inside the container, you just don't know what's inside. It's like a black hole. As soon as you are more aware, more conscious about the content, that maybe we say, for instance, was it your fault? Maybe not, because it's a collective container. But this is a sense of diluted responsibility to which we have to improve their common positive behavior. Okay. Other specific messages were sent to buildings, like a trainer went today to your building and we checked the quality of food waste. Well done, but watch out, use only compostable bags, things like this. So mostly positive messages, not only negative. There's no time to explain it better, but I would just stress on a couple of really quick similar examples in which we are using this know as you throw concept. One is the city of Bergamo, in which bags are delivered to citizens through vending machines, and when getting a roll of bags, citizens get a message saying like things like this: in the last 6 months you picked 3 rolls of bags. Families like households like yours, so social norm, are using on average 2.2 rolls, so you're already over. Please pay attention. And this is enough. This was enough, and it's still working. This is the real message they're using to increase separate collection of 5 to around 5 points percentage of increase of separate collection. So this is just a sense of being monitored and a kind of adding elements of convenience. We also tested this in other experiences, like for instance, the sense of being seen is the key when shifting from black bag to transparent bag. A system simple and easy in which you are allowing external people to look a little bit inside your bag and put also stickers if the content of the bag is not proper. This is another curious and peculiar case study in which trainers were putting stickers, green, yellow and red, with a detachable part. So if you are guilty and you get a red flag, you can remove it. Just the sense of not being visible for other residents, while the green one is sticking to your bin. So again, it's a tricky nudging thing just to improve behaviors, not to be showcased too much. This is the result. Again, in any of this trial, a lot of improvement in participation. And this is the last one, just to mention. We used this in Ireland. We just moved the brown bin closer to your entrance. So this is just convenience. Participation to food waste recycling was low. We experienced 200, 400, even 800% increase just by increasing convenience. So again, habits, as a conclusion, are not only related to your willingness to do things. Maybe as we listened before from other speakers, you have the willingness to do that, but you are not doing that. And that bottleneck is typically the tools that you don't have. Maybe the municipality is not providing you the right tools to do a proper separation. So some final takeaways: the use of nudging in environmental behavior has been used quite extensively in some fields, including energy, mobility, and water, but not much in waste recycling habits. So there is a lot of research to be done, and I'm personally convinced that the use of only economic incentives may lead to some adverse effect also, and not a good perception. And again, take advantage of this big data that we have. Otherwise, it's just a waste of money to set up all the scheme for monitoring and RFID and so on if you're not using this in the end. Thank you so much.
Very interesting. Many thanks, Michele. Maybe we can welcome now Menevis for a third case study.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can
Let
see.
me enlarge it. All
Yeah,
right.
perfect.
Okay. All right. Hello once more. Well, today I would like to share the positive and sustainable lifestyle experience with you. And our experience in Izmir with the PS Lifestyle tool, which is an Horizon project, gave us a real ground to observe a lot of things on circular behavior, sustainable behavior. But let me reflect on two broad questions. One of them is, why do so many people voluntarily engage with a sustainability tool, which is a digital tool, in fact, PS Lifestyle, which I'm going to very briefly explain in a moment. And the second question is, what makes people adopt circular behaviors in everyday life and what gets in the way? So these two questions. So let me just very briefly introduce PS Lifestyle Project. It's an Horizon project designed to help people, citizens, I mean. So it's on the citizen side, not on the producer side, to help students better understand the environmental impact of their everyday lifestyles. And through an online digital tool, citizens, participants could explore different areas of daily life, such as housing and food, mobility, and on these based on, I mean, through these different areas of lifestyle. The striking thing is that they can calculate their consumer consumption footprint, lifestyle footprint, all right, personal footprint, so their negative contribution to the nature. And based on that, based on the value of their footprint, they could choose practical actions and create their own lifestyle plans which have lower footprint, which is more in harmony with nature. So this is the app. This is the digital implement, the app. So the app was not only about measuring impact, the footprint, but it's also about making lifestyle plans change possible. Now, what we found very interestingly is that many of the actions which people selected after finding about their high footprint, let's say, many of the actions people selected were actually circular actions like repairing, reusing, reducing food waste, and buying secondhand. And I think this is especially relevant for today's discussion because it shows that circularity is not only about systems, but it can also become a part of everyday life. All right, so the outcome. Well, we often assume that awareness naturally leads to action, but as the previous speakers have also mentioned, focused on this, in reality, we know that it does not work like that. People care, for instance, they know climate change is important, it's not a good thing, but often they don't know what to do. They don't know where to start, or they feel that what they do is too small to make a difference. And this is exactly the positive and sustainable lifestyle tool try to address, to fill in this gap. So for us, the PS Lifestyle journey, let me say, the tool plus the project looked like this. It started with a digital tool, right? And the digital tool provided personal awareness and created awareness, and the awareness can lead to agency. And when this is supported by communities, by trust, which I'm going to elaborate in a moment, by local actors, networks, it becomes a real behavioral change. This is the general idea. So what we learned from the Izmir experience, well, in Izmir, for instance, more than 22,000 people took the test. In general, in the project, more than 500,000 people took the test, more than 500,000. In Izmir, it was to 22,000. So what did Izmir taught us with regards adopting behavioral change on circular actions? Well, first of all, let me tell you about the engagement triggers. I mean, why did so many people voluntarily engage with a sustainability tool, a digital tool, and create their own lifestyle plans? For us, there were 4 elements. This is about the digital tool, the digital tool, and maybe the gamification aspect of the tool. First one is personalization. Well, people didn't receive general advice. They received feedback based on their own lifestyle. The second one is, of course, making the invisible visible. This was this had a very high impact because climate impact is often very abstract. Carbon footprint is also an abstract phenomenon, but when PS Lifestyle, the digital tool, transported everyday choices into something visible and measurable, people said, well, my life matters. So this was also an important factor why people engaged in this digital tool. Another factor might be immediate feedback. The tool provided immediate feedback. And the fourth factor might be the choice and autonomy. Users selected their own action. So the message with regards gamification is that it was not about competition, but it was about self-discovery, relevance, and empowerment. Now, when it comes to barriers, the app had a feature which also where people can tell about the barriers with a skip function. Well, when it comes to barriers, why they are not willing to adopt circular behavior, the main barriers were, first of all, lack of services or infrastructure, affordability, convenience, and lock-in social norms. Well, let me continue. The enablers. Well, this is an important lesson which we learned through our experience in Izmir. The question is, what makes people adopt circular behaviors in everyday life? Well, our experience in Izmir raised a broader question: what makes really people adopt circular behaviors in everyday life? So there are 3 lessons which we learned from the Izmir experience. The first one is, well, meet people where they are. People didn't come to us to take the test, and we went to them. We went to schools, to universities, to festivals, to municipalities, and this mattered a lot. I mean, when you go to people and when you ask them to participate into something, well, it really works. Otherwise, people don't come to you. The second one is the trusted local actors matter, really. What I mean by this is that people participated in Izmir, more than 22,000 people participated because someone they trusted was part of the process. This someone might be the school administration, a municipality, university, or a local NGO. So trusted local actors definitely matter. And the third factor, which is in conformity with the social practice approach theory on behavioral change, community amplifies individual behavior. Well, the tool was an individual, it was individual, but the Izmir experience was collective. People may begin alone, I mean, calculating their footprint, but change, I mean, adapting circular behaviors or behaviors, actions in conformity with nature becomes stronger when it is social. So the key idea is the digital tools are powerful, all right, but they are much more effective when they're embedded in local social ecosystems. This is the very important lesson which we obtained from Izmir. So the final takeaway is, yes, gamification, the digital tool, these digital tools are really, I mean, good. I mean, convenient, but it is not the destination. These are, in fact, entry points. Sorry. These are really the entry points. Let me enlarge it once more. First of all, as a takeaway, many of the actions people chose were circular, and this tells us that circular economy can become part of everyday life when behaviors are made visible. And the second takeaway is the real transformation happens when awareness becomes personal, but at the same time, following this, personal actions become part of a wider community effort. So these are the final takeaways. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Menevis, Maria, and Michele, for these case studies. I think we have learned a lot of the different ways of engagement, especially to try to change behaviors towards circularity. So with this, the second session will be closed. Now we're going to have a little break. We're going to come back in 10 minutes to do our last session, which is session 4. So thank you, everyone, and see you in 10 minutes. Perfect. I hope you had a really nice break. With this, we are gonna give the jump to the next session. This next session is about designing behavioral engagement strategies. I'm gonna explain a little bit more what we're gonna do. We all are going to be divided into groups, specifically into breakout rooms. You're going to receive an invitation after this explanation, and you just need to accept to go to the breakout room. Each group is going to be given a predefined circular challenge. And the objective is that in your group, you can discuss with your team the target behavior, maybe any behavioral barrier that you can think of, and any proposed solution. Maybe also finding some inspiration on the examples that we just had during the first part, or coming up with your own examples. Each group has already an assigned moderator who will annotate the group discussions and in the share mirror board, because we're also going to have a share mirror board. In this mirror board, what you're going to find is a template with 4 sessions. The first section is the challenge that you have, so get familiar with the challenge. The second is defining the target behavior. You have some key questions, some guiding questions that can guide your discussion. The third one is identifying these behavioral barriers and different types of barriers that you could find. And the fourth one is to design your behavioral solution and also identify what are those stakeholders involved. So I would ask you to follow the template, the guiding questions. Of course, in here we ask you to bring also your experience or maybe other examples that you know of. And you don't have to answer all the questions, but you can focus on the ones that you think are most relevant for your team. There is already an example developed in the mirror board that is going to help you to further develop maybe your own strategy. And this is the one that it's here in the screen. So here is like a suggested timeline that you can find for discussing each section. Of course, it's up to you and to the group. In this, the objective was to keep reusing cups at municipal events. In the target behavior, we need to identify who are the ones who need to change this behavior. Here was identify maybe event visitors and attendees. And what is the behavior that we're trying to do is maybe that they choose drinks served in reusable cups and return them to the collection points. We have more questions to develop in this. Then in the behavioral barriers that we can think of, it's that there is a knowledge barrier. Visitors are unaware of the environmental impact of disposable cups. Maybe it can be a motivation barrier. There is not a perceived benefit from returning to these cups, but we have also other social norm barriers, convenience barriers that was mentioned in the examples. So as I said, it's not, we don't have to answer all of them, but these are only examples for you, and you can focus the discussion in the ones that you think are most relevant too. And the fourth section is regarding the behavioral solution design and the stakeholders involved. So in here, it's like a summary and a reflection on all the other sections that have been discussed. So what is this behavioral insight that you, or this desired behavior that you would like to have? How we can do this? In the example, we have proposed maybe a gamification, maybe a reusable cup deposit system. It depends on what do you think is going to work for you for your challenge. So with this in mind, I'm gonna share or open the breakout rooms now. Just making sure that everyone is in here. And I think we're gonna quickly to open them. So see you at 12:40. You're gonna have around 45 minutes to discuss these examples. Welcome back, everyone. Just give a couple of minutes so the last participants can join us in the plenary. Okay, perfect. I think it's all of us back in the session. I hope this group activity was very fruitful and you had a very nice discussion in your groups. Maybe it's time to share a little bit of what you've seen within your groups. I invite maybe for group number 1, Aran, would you like to share some of the key takeaways?
Should I share the screen or do you prefer to by voice? So because I can share the screen now.
As you prefer.
Okay, so you can see. You as you are all in the micro still, maybe I can see it. You can see the first one. So for the target behavior, we had the agreement that we had to involve the municipality, schools, NGOs, and the individual citizens too. What exactly should they do? The municipality could give door-to-door information. Oh, sorry, you are presenting? Okay. Because I could not see. To organize events in different formats, such as living labs and citizen assemblies or other co-creation mechanisms. The individuals can use compostable bags. The NGOs can provide information at schools more focused on the consequences or not correctly separating. And the schools can focus on outdoor classes to target specific age groups. The final behavior statement box will be that the citizens separate adequately in the bags, and we have not arrived to the when and where because we had to move to the barriers where most of the answers came. The knowledge barriers is still there is a doubt on what organic is because of the abstract nature of circular waste management and the lack of knowledge on what consequences have not correctly separating. The motivation barriers is that there is no immediate return on investment of this behavior. The social norm barriers are is that people who is behaving in this circular manner is still in some places sort of rare. Convenience barriers is that not enough bins for that organic waste are on the streets or in the cities, and that food is mostly sold in trays, and this difficult the separating two. And habit barriers is that single use and throwaway it is related to the previous one, the convenience, because they are omnipresent and disincentivize departing from this separation behavior patterns. And finally, the trust barrier is that people think that it is not worth doing this effort because they see that maybe they put all their organic in a separate bin, but then they see the truck coming from the municipality to take, and they see they are all the same truck sometimes, and the possibility of perceiving the circularity as imposed. And finally, the behavioral solution. The behavioral insight is that people is motivated if they get something in return, for instance, compost from organic waste, or an effective and engaging circular food waste that requires a combination of tangible and intangible resources. For example, entities and people who are aware of the role and contribution. The proposed solution can be the municipality using these organic waste to make compost and leasing land to the people to make communal gardens, so the people see directly what the organic waste is used for, and so the people how to use it to grow their own vegetables. Why it could work? Because the people can save money and also has an emotional and trust return, because the people see where it goes to and they have a sense of common. And the needed support, they are, as mentioned before, they are tangible because of the land, the beans, the staff, and also intangible because of the awareness and knowledge.
Thank you very much, Aaron. This was regarding the challenge increasing the correct bio-waste separation in apartment buildings. So we have considered all the targets, the different barriers that we may find, and what is our behavioral target at the end towards how we can encourage this bio-waste separation. So maybe now we can go to group 2. Rosa, if you would like to share with us.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much. So in our group, we discussed the challenge of encouraging repair instead of a disposal of different types of product groups like furniture, electronics, or other household items. We discussed clothes also a lot. And we had a very fruitful discussion. You will see all the details on the board, but I will just go through some of the highlights maybe now for this purpose. We defined the target behavior with our final behavior statement as people choose to repair as first option before disposing a product. I think that's relatively clear. But when we looked at the actors needed and the actions we would need from them, it showed very quickly that this is a quite complex topic to consider, and that actually many different actor groups are needed. Of course, I mean, the consumers, that's quite obvious. They need to change their behavior and start repairing. But for them to be able to do this, we need several different actor groups to enable them to do so. So we discussed the need for repair services, ideally nearby, not too expensive, well good in their quality. We discussed the role of municipalities for example, doing campaigns for also showcasing where local solutions like repair services can be found, and generally organize activities around their cities or regions. We also listed the schools and NGOs and universities as an actor group that could be well suited to provide information and bring forward skills to different parts of the population that they have access to, and with this help to re-establish skills for repairing, which beforehand used to be there, like 2 generations before us, but and we also looked at the role of manufacturers, quite obviously, to produce which of course is a large one and which are
I don't know if it was me, but I think I have some problems hearing Rosa's final remarks.
Rosa, we couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, let me continue. Let me finish what she was saying. We especially emphasized the gender, labor, care economy dimension of the repair culture. Because you see, we said that repair is not a new behavior. It was once part of everyday life, and especially through women's care work, mending clothes, reusing materials, extending product life. However, today, well, we women, there is the problem of time scarcity. So it has become a major barrier because we're not only caretakers, but we're also professional workers. So we emphasize the fact that repair is culturally familiar to most of the societies, I suppose. However, it is no longer practically feasible as unpaid care work because, I mean, women used to take care of this, but now it is no longer practically feasible as unpaid care work. Therefore, we suggested collective repair systems like repair hubs, repair cafes, and so forth. So collective repair systems can make it possible again. This is an important dimension, I suppose, the gender, labor, and care economy dimension. So repair we said, should become a collective activity, a system through, as I said, repair hubs, repair cafes, and so forth. Collective professional community, repair infrastructure. That's what we need.
Yeah, I think that was the full objective of the exercise as well, to try to understand what is the behavior that we want to change, and how this has many different initiatives in which we can target it. Maybe Aran wants to add something. Your mic's off.
Totally agree with Menevis, what Menevis said before. And also to add that, for instance, in the case of the devices, it is just impossible to repair because they are proprietary devices. So it's not possible. The clothes, still where I live, there are women that they work repairing, but for many electronic devices, for instance,
Yeah, we still have gaps.
Yeah, the error, but and yet, if our young generation could be provided with skills of repairing electronics or whatever at schools, at universities, this might be feasible. And we are suggesting not individual repair, but we're suggesting basically collective professional community repair infrastructure. That would work, I suppose, on a city scale, for instance.
Yes,
it is sometimes not a problem of collective or not collective. It's that you cannot you cannot do it because this is for the manufacturers. You have put this number 6.
Yeah. Definitely, you're right. Of course, manufacturers do have a lot of responsibility in producing, in designing products which are repairable. Definitely, you're right. But we just wanted to emphasize the gender, labor, and care economy dimension. That's also important, I suppose. Because we used to have this culture, my dear. Our grandmothers, I mean, they used to repair, they used to extend the life cycle of products and so forth. But now it's not possible for us, for women, for us anymore, because we're doing a lot of things. We're professional workers at the same time. We're taking care of the husband and the children and so forth. So, I mean, if this could be done on a collective basis, that would be easier, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree.
We're
Thank
so
you very
busy,
much for
aren't
that.
we?
And we
Okay.
can maybe, since we're running out of time, maybe we can go
Yeah.
quickly to our next group.
Yes, please. Thank you.
2, 3, Maria would like to share some insights.
Yes, thank you. Can you move to the
Sorry,
next one?
you should be seeing it now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So our topic was on the reuse of single-use packaging at public events. So how local festival and public events can reduce the generation of large quantities of disposal cups, plates, food packaging, and so on. So we did a lot of brainstorming. So we went with the flow. So you can see that not all the sticky box have been completed. So very, very quickly, starting with the target. So we identify, of course, the festival organizer, the companies, the city, the citizen and the visitors, but also the washing companies as an additional stakeholders in order to ensure that the cups, plates, and so on can be washed properly and reused. So in terms of what should they do? So of course we agree that we need some policies for managing this, but also to contract some companies with strict guidelines on their reuse. And something that is also considered important is do not offer other option apart from the reusable, for instance, cup during the festival, because what we notice is that sometimes in the same festival there are these two approach, some people with the reusable one and some with just plastic cups. So in order to harmonize these, and also a lot should be done in terms of marketing and communication in order to show the visitor the positive impact of the festival during on the environment. So going to the barriers, so we noticed that in this the main barriers are mainly on in terms of economic barriers, so motivation barriers. So maybe festival organizer see this use of reusable materials as more costly, but also more complicated, more expensive. So for instance, it's more difficult to also organize all the washing part and so on. So that's there is a strong motivation barrier, and also a convenience barrier in terms of hygiene, and also it's not maybe so comfortable to bring the cap all the time or the plates during the whole event. So in terms of solution, we thought about several solutions. So mainly the one purpose are leveraging the economic perspectives. So showcasing how the use of reusable caps, for instance, can support some saving. So that's on the side of the organizer of the festival, and on the side of the visitors, like for instance, some economic incentives, like when you return the cap, you will get some money back. then in terms of economic solution, we also thought about some co-financing from the city to support the festival and specifically to support these reuse materials. And we also thought about some alternative ways as solutions. So, like for instance, some example of competitiveness, like showcasing the amount of recycle during this year of the festival compared to the one of the previous year, and also something about the role of the citizen of the city, as support for this initiative. Like festival can borrow some cap from the city, so the city is an active stakeholder in this solution part. And finally, we also propose some co-creation workshop, some citizen assembly with the event organizer, citizen, in order to understand which are the barriers and the solution. And we also see a lot of role and power of the volunteers that are daily involved in the festival implementation, so supporting the effective reuse of these materials. I don't know if any of the team would like to add anything. Otherwise, that's from our side.
Thank you very much, Maria. We can go to the last group. Alice?
Yes, thank you, Lisette. So our group discussed the challenge was to increase participation in textile collection and reuse scheme. So very briefly, I'll try to sum up what we discussed. In terms of target behavior, the parties, let's say, that needs to act are both the governments to try to set up extended producer responsibility schemes for the big companies, citizens, the clothing shop, and also the NGOs and the association. The idea is to, from one side, to create, to raise awareness about the fast fashion and also what's behind that, but also new opportunities or neighborhood events and activity to become more aware of all these this topic. Yes, like campaigns and everything. When the behavior should happen in daily life, so from the very beginning, where to buying the new clothes, but also before throwing them away. So the whole idea was about increasing second-hand opportunities. The barriers are again about the knowledge, about the actual environmental cost of fast fashion, and about the possibility that there are like the swap parties. And also because it's still felt like a social barrier, a social non-barrier to wear second-hand clothes or garments. There's a problem also of the containers that are sometimes full dirty or are not taken care of, so this doesn't help. And also, as we were mentioning before, with many of these, the change of habits. So there's no more skills or habits in repairing clothes, and the quality of the clothing as well doesn't allow the taking into force, let's say, to repair them. The solution is again to increase popularity of repair, swap events, maybe with the community events and everything, and make the topic more visible. And this can be done together with the collaboration of NGOs, but the big companies as well, and the government to support also in simply maybe providing public spaces to do these events. Another point that was raised is that there's maybe a lack of monitoring of the behavior change of these activities of before maybe and after the activity to see how the behavior change in the textile reuse is. Okay, I'm gonna stop here because I know that we ran out of time, but thank you everybody, and I give the floor to Lisette.
Thank you very much to all the groups. It sounds like it was a really fruitful discussion. I hope you find this not only the activity but also the webinar very productive in your daily work. And let this be especially the first maybe reflection towards how we can keep improving this change in behavior for circularity practices. So just very quickly before we finish the event, we have a satisfactory survey. If you can help us to fill this in, we would really appreciate it. As you know, as it was mentioned in the beginning, we have a webinar series coming out from the CCRI Knowledge Hub. So it would be really helpful to keep improving these webinars with your comments. I'm going to also copy it here in the chat. It's very quickly, and you can tell us whether if this was helpful for you and for what you do. And of course, help us to improve this. I have this also a question, I think, a comment in the chat that they will about the presentations. Yes, we will share with you the presentations once we have ready, and also the recording of this webinar if you would like to retake or watch some of the parts that we have discussed today. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes so you can go into the link, and the next one would be just the brief news that we have about the CCRI Knowledge Hub. Let me see. If you have any problems with the link, please let me know. Give you a few minutes for this. And while you finish this evaluation, just gonna jump into our last bit of content. As you know, the CCRI Knowledge Hub having this series of webinars during the end of June and July. And we have many more interesting topics. Not all of them are related to public engagement, but they are on topics of circularity that you might find useful as well for your lines of work. So I invite you to go and check them out. In this QR code, you will have more information about the event itself, when it's happening, and the registration if you would like to be part of them. They are aimed to be also capacity building webinars like this one. So the idea is to not only understand a little bit of the theory that we're working in circularity nowadays, but also to try to put something into action. I will also share after this the materials, this QR code, so you can have it with you, and also the evaluation survey. So since we have take a little bit more of your time today, I just wanted to thank you all for being so active and engaging in this webinar. I hope you have taken lots of positive outcomes from this. And that's all from us. I hope you have a really good day today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.